I understand that Stronghold isn't a city building game. Instead, it's designed for small medieval castles and skirmishes that a large castle like Alhambra, for example, won't fit in its largest map. But despite this, there is an ability to build the impenetrable city, the crossroads of the medieval world, and the capital of the Roman, Byzantine, and Ottoman empires, Constantinople or Constantinople. The massive difference between real Constantinople and the buildings in Stronghold will prove a challenge in trying to simulate the city's very special defenses, the Theodosian walls. But looking at the modern studies of Constantinople's walls construction, we can realize that this can be achieved closely in Stronghold. Stronghold exactly, or it's DE, because it's the only game in the series that has towers and walls close in shape to the Byzantine one, just as I have chosen Stronghold Crusader to simulate Alhambra Palace in Iberia. And as exciting the siege of Alhambra, will it be the case in the siege of Constantinople? We'll see that in this video, but I want to clarify that this is not a simulation of any of the historical sieges on Constantinople. It is fully a Stronghold gameplay, and I will witness with you how strong are the Theodosian walls. Will the 3-layer defenses stand against a massive assault on Stronghold? Welcome to another battle in Strongfort. Firstly, I drew the land from the sea using the help of some maps, and because we don't have the ability to dig in a normal ground in a Stronghold to make the variation in walls heights, I could use another tactic by putting some mountainous terrain and build the first layer of the walls upon it. Later, I found a better way to simulate the Theodosian walls that you'll see in the story, and here is the prominent Byzantine defensive square towers. Unfortunately, because we can't control the orientation of the towers in Stronghold, I've been forced to build it as it is in this section of the wall, but the other wall was better. Now, to build the second layer of defense, I can dig in the mountain for the next wall, and it was made precisely accurate until I flattened the ground. And the next curtain wall was built in front, just like this. After adding the crenellations, we can build the smaller square towers under the large ones, just like real Constantinople. The Byzantine defenses did not stop there, but there were a third layer of defense in front of the two walls, and this is why I've digged for it, reaching the ground level on the length of the second wall. I dig very carefully from the Marmara Sea to the Golden Horn, finishing it with another wall and an entrance bridge for the city. Now, when we finish the land, we have a realistic view of Constantinople's western impenetrable defenses in Stronghold game. But we still have the entirety of the city empty, and I wanted to complete the walls first, then I will fill the city with houses and shops. I've completed the wall on the coast, and after the city's main walls have complete, I started building the Galata district. This section has a traditional strong wall and towers, and because we don't have ships for transportation between the two sections, I've put a river crossings to have access. And like this, we have completed the main outside walls of the city. Next, I've spent a lot of time building the city and putting up houses trying to simulate the streets, and even garrisoned the entire city walls and towers. But before I attempt to start a battle, I noticed a massive error that I've tried to avoid while building the walls from the beginning, which is the huge size of Constantinople can't be simulated as accurately as I have tried in the small Stronghold map, despite the city being full in view, but its western walls are very close to the end of the map, same with Galata walls. This will put enemy troops under the city's fire once they arrive and before they even try to attack, making it far from realistic or even challenging. I've tried to shrink the city as much as possible, but when I took a look over Constantinople's map in Hashashin's Creed Revelations, I noticed that they have made the city's walls not historically accurate, yet they have been able to design beautiful Constantinople streets and landmarks. Even the walls were realistic in close look in the game. So that gave me an idea. I will destroy my last project and start from scratch correctly, optimizing the city size for my need or for the Stronghold map size. I have rebuilt the city's double walls and stone moat and finished the outside walls, simulated the Galata Tower, and put the keep, which shall be the Emperor's Palace, in the far east of the city, and took my time decorating the palace gardens with all types of medieval beauty. and started simulating the streets again. Now, Constantinople was built on rugged terrain. There are many ups and downs in the streets, making it nearly impossible to build it accurately, especially when Stronghold has no even square houses. It's only village tents. But we have in Stronghold Crusader, when the developers wanted to simulate a section of Jerusalem, and it's also a very complicatedly designed city, they just built a lot of houses with streets between, and it was pretty. I made that when I built Girnata around Al-Hamra Palace, but removed it in the siege because the original Stronghold Crusader was too buggy when you have that massive number of hovels in the map. But we'll see how stable our Crusader Definitive Edition will be when we make Al-Hamra fully detailed in it. Now, as I have tried my best, remembering the streets I've walked many times in Hashashin's Creed Revelations and building it in Stronghold, without forgetting to carefully decorate the Empire's capital, especially the Galata district, where is the headquarters of the Hashashin. We have a very lively city in Stronghold, and here are the stages of development. At this point on working on Constantinople's project, and just before I play and record a siege, my old graphics card has reached its end of life. Not the support that stopped, but literally the hardware failed. And while Stronghold DE itself is fairly a light game, but the high quality screen capture of the GeForce experience can't be replaced by the useless OBS or any other low quality software, as that was a tragedy that stopped my process and forced me to produce the existing footage of Akka's video on the CPU and stopped me from producing any more content on Strongfort for more than a month. It was a refreshing opportunity to rethink and build the entire city of Constantinople for the third time. Now I'm free and have surplus time and energy to fit the city better into the restricted map. And it was also the best opportunity to correct the technique of building the Theodosian walls, as I'm thankful to Strategist Bay, whom I have learned from how to lower the height of any wall in Stronghold Definitive Edition by exploiting a bug in the game. I'll leave his video's link in the description, as it also helped me building Smerrevo Castle more detailed, which you can watch its video at the end of this one. Now I have built the 3-layered defenses of Constantinople far better than the previous attempts, and it looks and functions as in real life. And here is the final result. The ultimate form of Constantinople in Stronghold. I've built the Emperor's Palace, fortified by an extension of the city wall, with its own towers and garrison, with all beautiful, luxurious sights. Here is the supposedly Grand Bazaar in the middle of the city. Not sure if it was built during the Byzantines or Ottomanians' rule, but it has the stockpile, the armory, and the granary, all together with shops surrounding it. Small details of the streets. And this is the tiny city arsenal of the 400 map size, the Galata district. And I know this tower is far from the Galata tower, but the streets are very alive. And here is the majestic defenses of the Roman capital, fully garrisoned with 3 lines of archers, crossbowmen, and artillery. Since we are in a state of war, every section of Constantinople's walls is garrisoned, with most of the army on the outside front, but the inner sections are also guarded and patrolled by armored militia. Most importantly, the people are happy.
The people love you, my lord.
With a steady food trading and ale coverage, I can maintain the high popularity while earning gold from the taxes. I have prepared the city walls and towers with an army of around 800 units, archers, armored crossbowmen, and the heavily armored guards, with a contingent of heavy cavalry and 17 artillery pieces, including long-range ballista and wide coverage catapults. The army of Constantinople was massed in garrison, preparing after the news.
Scouts report a large force of the Snake's men are marching towards us. Scouts report a large force of the Pig's men are marching towards us.
Which spread panic among the innocent citizens, knowing that a massive barbarian army had arrived. I quickly gave a vacation to all, so they can stay safe in their homes during the coming fight. They sought refuge inside the most secure part of the city, within the Emperor's castle. The massive army of the Snake has arrived from the northwest of the peninsula, dividing their forces into 2 main halves, while the Pig has occupied the eastern shore of the Golden Horn. Our city was fully ready, and the enemy has mostly organized the land blockade, massing a combined army of around 1,700 strong, more than 500 archers and 300 crossbowmen, 350 pikemen, and around 500 fast-moving mace warriors, 60 plate-armored knights, with siege engineers and laddermen. I don't know what the laddermen will do against the Theodosian walls, but they are mostly with the pig, not the snake. The Western Army was the first to launch a probing attack with its left wing. Firing trebuchets and advancing their halberdiers and crossbowmen behind the catapults. The stones thrown directly reached the first and second layers of the city walls, while our garrison intercepted the incoming assault with a hail of arrows from the front and with flanking fire from Galata garrison. Enemy crossbowmen couldn't withstand and perished, leaving their line of infantry without cover. But despite this, they advanced under the continuous artillery bombardments and even destroyed the first gatehouse. Encouraged by this small breach, the entire army thought that the city's defenses weren't as impenetrable as they appeared, so they hastily massed their archers without wooden shields, exchanging heavy fire with my garrison. The enemy achieved some success against the outer wall on the moat, and their clever leadership has positioned their line of catapults away from our range of arrows, causing significant destruction in the second wall, even demolishing some of our towers. While most of their crossbow reinforcements were annihilated with their archers, their infantry was running into the killing ground between the second and third walls. Their eagerness after the brief success of the previous assault has blinded them from taking proper planning. That is why Sun Tzu said, "Appear weak when you are strong, and appear strong when you are weak." Meanwhile, enemy infantry began smashing through the inner gate, while my heavy cavalry waited for them on the other side, intercepting the attackers with the edges of their swords and the hooves of their horses. But the larger number of packed infantry had overwhelmed my knights. While the vast majority of their army perished under the walls of Constantinople, the remaining infantry now has an open route through the Theodosian walls. They charged inside the city, only to be intercepted by the patrolling guards at the palace's garrison, who have finished the intruders before they harm any innocent in the city. The snake's assault failed completely despite their initial success, and their remaining soldiers escaped from the slaughter. But the pig's troops sought an opportunity, sending their crossbowmen directly against the Galata defenses, followed by the general advance of their entire force. While their vanguard stood briefly in the missile battle, the archers had replaced their positions, while the macemen rushed to assault the wall, dropping a siege tower on the exposed city wall, and now their infantry marched to the tower, under continuous fire from the ramparts. The brutal macemen had reached the battlements first, clearing the way for their armored pikemen, who marched unopposed on the length of the wall, behind the barbarians who were smashing every one of my archers and destroying every piece of artillery with their heavy maces. The outer gatehouse collapsed from battering, while the line of heavily armored knights now breached the city. They went through the streets, while another squad went to fight the garrison on the walls. The intruders heavily clashed with the street guards, overwhelming them in numbers, with another group of them breaking formation to go fighting our remaining garrison in Galata. Now, the route to the Emperor's palace was open to the enemy infantry, who crossed the sea under massive fire, but finally met with the Imperial Guards, who intercepted the exhausted enemy soldiers and cut them into pieces in the close sword combat. The remaining knights were too weak to withstand an assault, and while cornered against the far from safe palace wall, they were slaughtered quickly, before they could cause any damage in the city, which survived the massive allied assault, and the palace remaining intact. The Galata district was the most affected section of the city because it lacked the especially strong defenses of the Theodosian design, which also suffered terribly during the brutal siege. The main aspect of defense in Constantinople is the Theodosian walls in the west, and because of the restricted building capability in the Stronghold and its DE, I felt this siege was incomplete, so I may return to the Roman capital and complete our unfinished story in a later video. But until then, let us read and reply to comments from the previous video building Akka city detailed with a massive siege in Stronghold Crusader Definitive Edition. First Dragon Lord says, were the pronunciations of some of the words your native way of saying those words? Like assassin sounded to my ear like hashashan, and Arabic sounded like Arabic. I am curious since I'm not a native English speaker myself. Regardless of that, I like the siege of the city and also very much like the building process. It shows the effort put into the making of the map. Good usage for the massive maps. As I'm not a language expert and can sometimes mistake pronouncing some words from different languages, I try to say the word closer to its origin. Like assassin isn't originally an English word, but it was said by the Crusaders to call the Hashashin group of a secret occult society established by Hassan al-Sabbah. Not to confuse his name with the word Hashashin, his name is Hassan, the crazy man who tried to corrupt Islam's teachings to prove that he is the ultimate teacher that has the secret knowledge from God, but he was a stupid liar. And according to legend, Hassan al-Sabbah was using hashish or marijuana to convince his foolish and ignorant followers that if they obeyed him and killed his targets, they will go to heaven. From there, the Muslims or Arab in general called them Hashashin, meaning consumers of marijuana, and the Crusaders called the Hashashin assassins. If I can pronounce Arabi as its original, I would say Paris instead of Paris, and that's it. Marius Bir says, amazing. I hope for definitive editions for Stronghold 2 and Legends 2, so you can also build there. Don't worry, I will build there as I'm already having written ideas, but I'm not a follower of trends. I'm not playing DE because it's new, but I'm walking through the entire series in order and trying to make some variation in content. So even when I play and make a video from Warlords, you'll find the next video maybe from Stronghold DE, followed by a video from Stronghold 2, to make sure that the content you love here on Strongfort isn't affected by trends and will not be changed except for the more excitement. Ghost says, the castle looks amazing. Tell me how you managed to change the style of the churches and the editor to Arabic style. You can't change the type of worship buildings inside the map editor, but once you save the map, and if you choose to play with the Arabi Lord in the settings and launch your map or any other map in the game except for the historical campaigns, I think, you'll find the churches turned into masjids. Thank you guys for your comments, and I'll wait for your comments that you will write right now to discuss in the next video. If you enjoyed this one, leave a like and subscribe to Strongfort channel, and I'll meet you on the coming battlefield, or any other battle you will choose to watch from here.